As the great poet Kanye West once said, the prettiest people do the ugliest things. Then again, he also said how, welcome back, horror fans. I'm Leo, and Bootube Breakdowns is here to save your scary movie night. Right off the bat, the Autopsy of Jane Doe scores a 6.0 out of 10, which lands it in our Ghoul Drool category. But here's the thing. I've already had to have my heart cut out just to get you this score. And in a few minutes, I'll show you exactly why this film earned its rating. If you disagree with my score at the end of the video, be sure to let me know how much you want to get your wrists and ankles destroyed while making a bargain with a witch. And then be sure to like, share, and subscribe about it in the comment section. A father-son mortician duo, which is a wild way to start off a sentence, by the way, have to perform an emergency late-night autopsy. A mysterious woman's body was found at a crime scene that the cops cannot explain and need our two morticians, Tommy and Austin, to explain what's going on. Our two morticians begin the autopsy to explain how our aptly named Jane Doe died. The autopsy starts fairly regularly. Height, weight, sex. Don't be weird about the two massive demonetizers on screen, and just try to find out why this woman has died. Outwardly, she's perfectly healthy, but as they cut into her, they find signs of trauma that should not be possible. The deeper they cut, a presence that has suddenly appeared where they're performing the autopsy starts to become more and more powerful. Things ramp up until they figure out the mystery of our Jane Doe, but not without its deadly consequences. Now, at first glance, this movie appeared like it would be more of a psychological thriller about the slasher, where our morticians piece together the murder of our Jane Doe. However, once they started the autopsy is where the movie completely blindsided me. They saw that her wrists and ankles were broken, her eyes looked like someone who had been decaying for months, if not years, but her skin showed no bruising, there was no inflammation in her navel cavity, and her ears were completely clean. When they finally cut into her is where things start to get really weird, as they found that her lungs were burned, her heart had cuts, and the inside of her skin had ritualistic sigils tattooed on them. As this happens, things in the background go from weird to outright demonic. At first, it's a flickering of the lights and interference with the radio, but it escalates to dead bodies wandering the halls, smoke from hell devouring the halls, and even a gigantic fire burning down part of the room. Our morticians cannot leave because the evil energy has caused a massive storm. The big reveal is that our Jane Doe is a victim of the Salem witch trials, and over the centuries, she's been killing people to restore her body. The premise is rather unique, the execution is interesting, tight, and in general, believable. There's a few stumbles here and there, but overall, it's a great story that I believe deserves at least a 7 out of 10. In my opinion, the pacing is the weakest point of the story. Overall, the movie is a very well executed slow burn that worked well with slowly rising the danger level the more we cut into Jane Doe. However, I believe the thing that kills this movie is Austin's girlfriend, Emma. In the beginning, she's kind of introduced as the standard girl comes in to steal son away from the family kind of trope, and for plot reasons, she just kind of goes away. However, the movie thought it would be a good idea to bring her back at midnight to the basement of a mortuary during a record storm while the lights were off, just to have her killed off by Tommy. Don't worry, he's not a monster. There was some Jane Doe magic involved. But anyways, the movie then has Tommy and Austin get stuck inside an elevator for some reason to discuss their feelings. Something about their dead mother and some ham-fisted tragic backstory. Look, I know it's a 1.5 hour long movie, but if you really needed to fill the runtime, a few more shots of the demonetizers would have been good. The main issue is that this section really breaks the tension the movie has worked so hard to build up, and then it decides to rush to the next part of the movie where Tommy sacrifices himself to, I guess, repair the witch, so long as his son is spared. Guess what? The witch lied, and she killed Austin anyways. It was so good in the first half, then fumbled the story and rushed it at the end. Still, I was never really bored with the overall experience, and at best, it's about average with its cadence. So I'm going to be giving the pacing for this one a 5 out of 10. The fear factor for this one was another one of those unfortunate scenarios where you had a solid horror movie, but by messing up with the pacing, you killed its momentum, and so you then choose to compensate with cheap scares. Look, because this is supposed to be a slow burn, this movie was much more atmospheric with its horror than, monsters getting in your face. That's not to say that it didn't happen, I'm just saying that that's what they should have stuck with. The danger was kept more ambiguous and demonic, whereas they should have played it harder on the curse aspect. You're dealing with a witch after all. Burn already! If they could have continued the autopsy, but had her curses become stronger and more possessive, similar to the witch powers in Weapons, link in the description, we would have had a significantly more menacing and scary witch. Now, I was still willing to give this one a 6 out of 10, but after a 2-point cheap scare deduction, this one settles for me at a 4 out of 10. Oh, there's a lot to love about this movie. The autopsy itself was very fun and a central aspect of the whole movie. For starters, cutting up Jane and finding all these anomalies inside her body were not just believable, but extremely unsettling and an excellent storytelling device. The tattoos under her skin were very impressive, but what was probably my favorite aspect was watching her body get repaired, especially the eyes. The apparitions and zombies in the background were kind of fun, I guess, but nothing special. Also, the cat scene did make me chuckle a little bit. I would have liked to see more of this witch's curse abilities, and it almost felt like the writers were struggling to balance the demonic aspects of witches to what witches are supposed to be capable of. Still, with the exceptions of the pacing issues, the film was a ton of fun to watch, and I believe the fun factor should be at least an 8 out of 10. Oh boy, that ending was something. The witch takes Tommy up on his offer to have him sacrifice himself in order to restore her body so long as, she spares his son. Turns out that witches is trifling, and Tommy was not enough to fully restore her, so she decided to kill off Austin too. Well, the storm passes, the same sheriff that dropped off Jane Doe the night before walks into the mortuary with a bunch of dead bodies, and Jane Doe's still on the table. She gets a toe tag, wrapped up, transferred to another mortuary, and on the way, she does some witch shenanigans with the radio. Her toes twitch, signifying that she's regaining movement, and cut to black. I'm not going to waste a ton of time with this section. It's a basic ending seen a million times before in a million other horror movies. Don't get me wrong, I definitely wanted to see a fully restored Jane Doe, but the script didn't want to go all the way with it. So instead, we got the generic open the eye, or twitch a body part, or make a noise, or give some vague indication of maybe a sequel ending. The only saving grace is that this witch was very interesting, and I definitely wanted to see more of her, so the cliche ending felt more appropriate. Still, it was nothing special, and I'm just going to give the ending on this one a 6 out of 10. So that's Bootube Breakdowns' take on the Autopsy of Jane Doe. Averaging our scores gives this movie a 6.0 out of 10, which places it in our Ghoul Drool category. Do you agree with my rating? Scream your score in the comments and tell me what horror flick I should gut next. If this saved your spooky vibes, smash that like, share with your horror crew, hit that notification bell, and subscribe to Bootube Breakdowns for more killer verdicts. Keep it creepy, and I'll haunt you in the next review.